Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are around the world. Welcome and an especially warm welcome to everyone who has tuned in from Great Britain and France, the two nations that will do battle for the Nations Cup 2022 trophy. So, welcome to you all. Welcome also to my co commentator tonight, Lucas Moore, who's sitting in Denmark. Thanks for joining me, Lucas. It's the big one, isn't it? It's France against Great Britain. They both went through their semi-finals, winning 6-3, and it's really difficult to choose a winning team out of those two.
Yeah, I think with France have won, I think they won last year, and Great Britain won the year before. So we we really have the two top teams of the Nations Cup in history. So I think we're gonna have
Yeah,
some exciting races, some exciting matches,
that's
and one
right.
hell of a fight.
So, which team will win their second Nations Cup? In the next couple of hours, we're going to find out. It's the same format. If you've been following the Nations Cup, it's the same format that we have followed throughout. So it is 9 races. It's the best of 9. So the first team to score 5 points will win. Those are the 9 races. Mostly in each race is in a different class of boat, except for the one-on-ones match races, which are in the Star class. So we've got a 49er, a Star, an offshore racer, J70, Laser, Far East, Star, again, F50, and Nacra 17. We start and we end with everyone involved and racing in a 10 against 10 match. And the point of the idea behind that, Lucas, and the variety of boats is that it really tests the sailors on different types of boats rather than just the one.
Yeah, the boats in Virtua Regatta, they are very different, like in real life. It requires a different skill set for each boat. Some boats are very slow, some boats are very fast. So you have a mix of all the different types of boats, which also makes for some good racing and maybe some small mistakes from some of the sailors.
Okay, well, let's get out on the water because we haven't got long to the start of the very first race, about 45 seconds, in fact. So this is going to involve everyone in both of the teams. So we've got 20 boats out there, 10 British and 10 French. And that first race is in the very fast 49er. 30 seconds to go. What are they trying to do at this point, Lucas?
So here they're trying to line up, um, trying to pen each other just around 10 seconds before the start. So the opponent starts with a slowdown. We might also see some boats lining up on port tack in order to do the infamous port tack start that we use in Virtua Regatta to get out on the right hand side and have the starboard advantage on the first cross.
Here we go then. The grand final of the Nations Cup is underway, and it was a pretty good start from those leading boats. A few penalties for being over early, but spread across the two teams. And remember, this is crucial. It's not just fleet racing, it's team racing. So it's also about helping your teammates move up the fleet, those that might be struggling near the back. Upwind we go. It's upwind, downwind, downwind, a classic Olympic 49er course.
Yeah, and we see they're already starting to kind of attack each other, put their opponents inside the wind shadow. Looks like the British have gotten quite well away from this first start. Looks like they have a couple of boats in the top.
Yeah. About 11 knots upwind is the max speed in the 49er in e-sailing, and it's upwind that often decides how the teams are going to do, just because the downwind shadow doesn't have that much of an effect. As we'll discuss this as the regatta unfolds, but it's mostly about the upwind. So they will be wanting a really good first leg as they head out to that dotted ley line, the most efficient route to the top mark on the left-hand side of the course.
Yeah, and it looks like
Looking,
we're all boats have gone to the left, so now we're going back to the windward mark. A couple boats have overstood the ley line, but it is team racing, so they have probably been pushed quite far out. So it's going to be exciting to see all the boats coming in on port, and if any of the teams have some starboard traps set up for those.
all right, let's watch them come in as the fleet converges. It looks like we've got Maradoni and Pichnet and Pepito of France out there in front, leading away, and a early penalty on Pichnet from Maradoni. Maradoni then picks up a penalty himself, and it's all about trying to inflict those penalties at this stage to slow your opponent down, let your teammates try and catch up. But look at that, 3 pink sails out in front at the top mark. Not for long though, because the Brits inflicted penalties, and now it is France and then Great Britain in second, France in third.
Yeah, so I think this is what we call a classic 10 versus 10 49 and mark rounding. Kind of chaotic, just throwing your boat around the mark, hoping for the best. The penalty isn't as expensive in this first mark rounding, so all you want to do is just try squeeze your boat in, hope for the best, and you nearly always catch up for the next mark, as you'll probably see some other boats getting the penalty. So we're still pretty close in between the two teams here.
And it is 21-year-old Alexandra Kowalski who leads the fleet for France around through that bottom gate and heads upwind for the second time. Speedy 1 of Great Britain in second, and Barbie 22 of France in third place. But there's a real battle going on behind them, because look, there's a wall of tricolores in third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, and then a lot of great British boats further back from 12th down to 16th, and they need to move up if they want to take this victory.
And it looks like we have some wind on both sides of the race course, so it's going to be interesting to see who goes all the way left and who goes all the way right. Looks like at the moment most of them are going to
Looks
the
like the
left.
French are definitely going to
See,
that left-hand side.
yeah, a couple
A
British
small
boats,
split in the fleet, as a few go right, but mostly everyone is going left.
and it looks like the left shift is coming in first, but it's going to be in VR. You never really know if we're going to have the right hand shift in a couple of seconds, but it looks
Yeah,
like
well,
it's a strong left shift for now.
yeah, it's interesting because just like on a real race course, the wind is coming in, it's dropping out. You've got highs and lows of wind speed, and you've got to keep an eye on those windsocks in the top left corner, and also the color of the darkening sea. And look how dark it is at the top mark. That is a great opportunity for the leaders to try to catch that breeze and get even further ahead and build that lead. So first around, Alex Kay has held the lead. Barbie 22 is his second now. Pichnet and Stefan of France are there, and it's not looking good for the British team in this first race. They have a lot to do with just one leg to go.
The French have done a really good job in the second upwind. It looked like it was a coordinated left hand upwind. No pink boats on the right hand side, and they've just done a really good job getting a 1-2-3 currently.
Yeah, a really good job. These four British boats there, with not much they can do. They can
Small
challenge
mistake.
the French, and here we see some of the French sailors, I think, falling back there. Unnecessary though, because they're in a good position for victory. And
It
if you want to
looks
do the
like
maths at home, the basically 55 or less is going to win this race for one of the teams.
the British have actually managed to come back, really bunched up the French fleet on this downwind. Good job on covering them with the wind shadow.
So Speedy and Rooston, that's Jenna, have moved up. So we've got a few of the British boats. Look at the Union Jacks on the left there. They're moving up into the top 10, and that has made all the difference. And it might just have changed the balance of power in this race. And it's going to be a battle between Alex Kay and Barbie 22 and Speedy, who, as they go across the line, it's a British boat. And then come a load of other British boats, and those will be vital. Rooster Jenner, Maradoni, and Speedy. Those 3 boats are going to be crucial when we do the maths. So confirmation of the result there. Alex Kay. So it's France 1-2. Speedy splitting that French wall. Then comes Pichenet of France, and then crucially in 5th, 6th, and 7th, 3 British boats, 2 French, another Brit, and as we scroll up the results board there, France in 11th and 12th. I'm waiting to see how the rear of the fleet is split up, and there you've got again a group of 3 Brits. So it's actually really difficult to call this. I won't have expected Lucas to do the maths in his head. Instead, you take a look at these stats, and what do they tell us?
Well, it's hard to use these stats in a 10 versus 10 race. Some boats.
So explain that, because those stats are really going to kick in later on in the competition.
Yeah, of
Tell
course,
me about this.
As we get fewer boats in the races, it's going to be more important to keep up your average boat speed and shortest distance sailed. But in these 10 versus 10 races, it's nearly always the winner of the race. As we see, Alex Kay was also the name on most of those statistics on the first chart. So
yeah, a really good performance from the 21-year-olds. He didn't show any signs of nerves in this first race. Just waiting to find out and waiting for confirmation of who has taken that first point in this best of 9 regatta. And I'm hearing it's a France victory over Great Britain in that first race. There is the confirmation. So very early days, 1 race down, it's gone to France. Can Britain come back? Remember, Lucas, we did the France-Spain semi-final together. We were expecting it to be really close, and then France went and took it 5-0, didn't they? It's
yeah, we discussed it before we went live, and talking about we're probably gonna have a 4-4 or a close score, but what do we know? A 5-0, and then but the races were close, so it wasn't like the Spanish just got stomped on.
Yeah, and I mean, in the end, it finished 6-3, didn't it? So the French certainly got some points on the table. Okay, so we move on from, by complete contrast, from 10 against 10 to 1 against 1, and it is the star class.
Yeah, so a bit slower, or quite a lot slower. Only
quite a lot
on the race course.
And it's female against female in the star class, 1-on-1, very different tactics. And it's match racing, basically, isn't it? So it's who blinks first. And we're just a minute or so away from the start of that race. There we go, straight out on the water. In fact, 45 seconds from the start. So we've got Rooster Jenner of Great Britain up against Barbie 22 of France, and they're doing a merry dance here as they try and get the position that they want on the line, really, and dominate their opponent. Where would you want to be, Lucas?
Yeah, of course you want to be leading, but you want to try force a penalty onto your opponent around between 0 and 10 seconds to the start, just to get that maximum slowdown on the first upwind. And it is possible to win the race on the first upwind if you manage to either push your opponent over the line so they get a false start and a penalty. But here we see a nice clean start and pretty even at the moment. Looks like Jenna might be forced to tack over soon and
Okay, race
split.
2 of this grand final is underway. It's the 19-year-old from Great Britain with the blue sail up against the 31-year-old from France with the pink sail. And at the moment, Barbie has the Brit where she wants her. The Brit, though, has now manoeuvred herself into a good position. And really, the upwind leg is all about, trying to get ahead, but trying to get as much distance between yourself and your opponent as possible. Over 30 meters, 30 to 35 meters is the wind shadow downwind. So it's it's pretty easy to catch your opponent if you're within that distance at the top mark.
Yeah, definitely. Jenna's done a really good job at surviving on the hip of Barbie. Looks like she's in a very good controlling position, and it's her call now on when they're going to head to the windward mark. But it's not 30 meters yet, so I think we're going to have a good fight here on the first downwind.
There we go. She disengages, she turns, she heads to that top mark. She pushed the French woman as far out as she decided she wanted. What's the thinking with that sort of that push, that forcing of your opponent beyond the ley line?
You don't want to actually go too far. So you want to make sure that you keep your opponent in your wind shadow as long as possible. As we see it's happening now, Barbie's going straight for the mark and Jenna's just going a bit high, and then she's going to start bearing away, heading to the mark and keeping Barbie in her wind shadow the whole way, just to get a little bit of extra distance before the first downwind. So I think that was a really good job. We see some people just continuing forever and then they're on a reach to the windward mark. And when you're on a reach, you don't really put as much wind shadow on your opponent. So staying close to the ley line is always a good idea.
Well, they're there, and it's Rooster Jenna who is round first, but the French sailor right behind her and within challenging distance as they turn downwind on this first downwind leg, first of two. And that's a great aerial shot that really explains this sort of dirty air, the wind shadow that we keep talking about. You can see the wind coming from behind them, and that white turbulence is affecting the boat in front.
Yeah, so what we see now is Jenna just going out to the right-hand side, looking upwind, just maximizing the amount of time that she can be on starboard tack, going down to the gate.
And why does she want to do that?
So if she had continued or he had not jibed after the mark, she would have given up the starboard advantage to Barbie. So what she's doing now is making sure that she keeps the starboard advantage when they jibe, or that she is at least not is overlapped after the jibe. So what she's going to try to do now is probably head to the windward mark and hope that Barbie doesn't manage to go below and get the overlap to have the right of way.
Well, she's doing a really good job of holding off the French sailor, and Barbie doing everything she can. And in the semi-finals, we saw a similar situation. And in the excitement and in the pressure, it was the rear boat that picked up the penalty as they tried to hook and overtake the boat in front. But looks like Barbie 22, hugely experienced e-sailor, keeping well out of trouble, trying to squeeze in on the inside, and she does. And that sees Rooster Jenna go to the other side. So what's the thinking there?
Yeah, I think this is interesting. It's the first split we've seen in all the races I've commentated, at least for this Nations Cup. And Barbie, I think Jenna actually got the favored mark that's further up the race course. But interesting tactics. I think still Barbie is pretty much in the lead until the next downwind. And she's just got to do a good job of doing a hard cover on Jenna every time she tacks. but at the moment it looks very good for the French.
So the French in a great position. Of course, it's part of the winning French team in 2021. Is she going to come away with successive gold medals in the Nations Cup as she crosses in front of the British boat? And there's very little between them.
Yeah, and Barbie actually doesn't have to. She doesn't have to go back out and cover. I think she's gonna, yeah, just be on ley line for the windward mark here. So really good job again from Barbie.
And Rooster Jenner just going slightly further out to try and avoid the turbulent air off the back of Barbie's boat.
So I think
Barbie's actually
from that gate rounding,
so,
we can conclude that it was a 30 meters that she lost from taking the split.
Yeah. So not the best of decisions.
But I don't think it's enough yet.
But it's certainly not over
line.
yet. 30 meters between them as Barbie 22 or Kavin Barbara crosses the heads towards the finish line. She's going downwind. So the last leg, time is running out for Rooster Jenner of Great Britain to catch the French sailor from Brittany.
Looks really good for Jenna at the moment. 8.3 knots. Really catching up very fast. So now it's all about the last jab to the finish line and who gets the all-important overlap.
So we're halfway down this final downwind leg, and Rooster Jenner has that downwind advantage because of the wind shadow. She is storming up alongside Barbie 22. Now, what can Barbie do? She pulls in across to try and block her, but picks up a penalty and then tries to inflict a penalty on the Brit. It doesn't work, and Rooster Jenner of Great Britain is going to be away. Jenna Snedker, the 19-year-old from Cornwall, is in a really good position. But look, the French sailor coming back. She's not over yet. She's not giving in. She's trying to catch that British boat, but she's running out of racetrack now. 7.5 knots from the French boat. This is so close, and you can see the finish line as they can. Now, can the Britons hold on? The French getting into a really good position. Rooster Jenner maneuvers and tacks and picks up a penalty.
That was just enough. That was...
And right at the end, it turned into a French victory. It looked like it was done and dusted, didn't it, for Britain? But, wow, Barbie showing all her experience of 2 Nations Cup finals to come back and win that.
Yeah, small mistake. When Jenna gave Barbie a penalty. I think she just left up a bit too late. She has to close the gap a bit before, so Jenna can't jibe on to starboard tack. But good job at just staying close and catching up as fast as possible, and giving her a final penalty just before the finish line.
All right, so confirmation of that victory then. It's another French win, so it is now 2-0 to France. And I'm writing it down on my piece of paper so that there's no confusion when we get to that 5th race. So you're really kind of laid bare, aren't you, in those 1-to-1 races? We're going to see another 1-to-1 in the Star a little bit later on when the men do battle. That will be the 7th race of the night. But yeah, there's a lot more pressure on you when you're racing in that situation, isn't there, Lucas?
Yeah, of course. You're by yourself. It's your own choice on what move you're gonna pull next. And it does get very tense. And I could imagine also in the grand final of the Nations Cup, it's gonna be probably going to be a bit more nerves than just in the group stage. So I'm guessing that they've probably practiced a lot of star match races coming up to this grand final.
All right. Well, the next race format is 5 against 5, so we'll have really seen the kind of the full spectrum, from 10 against 10, 1 against 1, and now that sort of halfway house, which is 5 against 5 in the offshore racer. What are the strategies that they will have agreed going into this race?
So now we're bringing the boat count down in team races. 5 versus 5 is a bit more manageable to keep score and do some small tactics that can help you win the race. It's a bit more
Such as?
traditional team racing. So it's easier to maybe group up the opponents and try get one or two of your own guys sailing away and claiming the first and second spot. So I think we're going to see
Okay.
some small
Now let's just get out on the water. You can carry on,
tricks.
Lucas, but let's just see how the action is beginning to unfold out there. Carry on.
So yeah, now the start becomes even more important. It's really important not to start with a penalty, as it's really hard to sail back through the fleet when it's only 10 boats in total.
Okay.
And it comes down to even more of the individual skill level of each of your teammates as well. So you want to make sure that you've practiced all the close one-on-one racing as well, and especially in the offshore racer, which turns a bit slower than some of the other boats, and is maybe a bit more clumsy with also the bowsprit being out.
Okay, no change of skins or anything. It's still pink for France and blue for Great Britain, and British boats already pushing themselves close to that line. They've got to be careful. 4 seconds to go. And those who are ready have lined themselves up. They're building up speed. They've crossed the line. It's race 3 of the Nations Cup 2022 Grand Final. It's the offshore racer, a much bigger, heavier boat than we're used to seeing in inshore racing. So you really need to sail it in a different way, don't you, in order to avoid picking up penalties.
Yeah, and then you also just that it's a bit longer. It makes it a bit more difficult to see if you're going behind or if you're just gonna hit the other boat. And then also in the maneuvers, it turns a bit slower, and then it's just a bit more clumsy to sail. And the wind shadow is
Huge.
very, very just
Yeah.
long, and it's really annoying to try get away on the downwind with a wall of 8 other boats covering you.
All right. So we're in the early stages of this race. We've got Alex Kay. Great performance from him. He won the first race today, and he's out in front at the moment, and is now beginning to tack across the course. And Arthur Farley, Von Pigeon, Caven Fines, and another British boat in there as well. So it's France in the lead, but Britain certainly in the hunt. And coming up on this left ley line as we look down the course, there's quite a few dark blue sails coming up and challenging this French boat as they come up to the top mark. A penalty on Creek, and British boat just sneaking in on the inside. Arthur Farley, though, picking up a penalty for Gadek as well. And talk us through the tactics that they're using for these penalties. How are they inflicting those penalties exactly?
Here on the dog leg, I think they're not as damaging to the final result as they are on the last downwind. But you still want to try stay clear and try get some of your teammates ahead, so they're out of the fight and you have secured some low points for the final score. And it looks like the British have done a pretty good job on this first upwind, and then giving the right penalties to the right French boats on the dog leg.
So Von Pigeon out in front for Great Britain. Caven Fines also in the mix there. The young Arthur Farley. A real mix of ages in the British team. Some very young players and some older players as well. So a real mix of kind of experience and reaction speed. As I was just watching Speedy there. I think picking up, was he picking up a penalty? Yes, I think he did.
Yeah, I think it looks like he got it from either just straight out the gate. Might have been penned by a French boat, but the British have done a really good job at controlling this race and are just doing a good job at tacking on top of the French boats to force them into the wind shadow.
Right. Well, as they come up for the second
We actually
time
see
to
Speedy
the top.
is back in the game.
Yeah, he's moved his way up the fleet. He's had a really good upwind leg this time and has moved his way up. And Britain, look, 4 blue sails are out there in the leading pack as they approach the top mark. Von Pigeon, the 51-year-old from Ipswich, is leading the British charge. Caven Fines Arthur Farley, first, second, and third. As it stands, this is going to be a British victory, but you've got to get as much advantage upwind as possible, because as you head downwind, that wind shadow is the biggest in e-sailing, 45 meters. So the French, potentially still in touching distance, could still reel in some of those French boats. But now what the French are doing here is trying to slow down, trying to inflict penalties on the British rear boats in order to help their team move up.
Yeah, looks like Deja Vu is just doing his best to slow down the last French boat. Looks like
As
they may
things
have figured
stand,
out
though,
that all they need is not to get last, and they'll probably win.
absolutely. At the moment, it's a British win.
But we do have
I'm not sure
Pepito
that.
slowing
Look at
down
these.
Speedy, and he has
They're,
shown.
they're at it all the way down, aren't they?
Yeah, he has shown
Penalty
that
against
he's one of the
penalty.
best at slowing down the other boats.
So a convincing victory from Von Pigeon and Caven Fines. And in the end, it looks like it was a French boat in third, fourth, and fifth. So things aren't decided yet. And the French know exactly what they're doing in trying to force the British back. And look at that.
We actually have Arthur coming back to try help his teammates, but it might have cost him the.
I think the last downwind leg, that fight, those scraps between the French and British boats, I think has played into the hands of the French. And I think
Yeah,
that might be enough for France
hopefully that
to
doesn't
take
cost
it.
them. That would be a really stupid mistake to make, just to give away a point like that.
Maybe it was Arthur Farley that went back, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe he got the maths wrong. We can do the maths if you want.
Hopefully they have somebody calculating that for them during the racing. We had that on the Danish team, so
yeah, I mean the sailors are all in communication, aren't they? They're in touch. They're on a chat, and often some of the teams are also talking to each other as well, even though they're spread out across the country that they're in, or even indeed across the world. So there we go. You can see some of the overtake. You can see how those different legs unfolded, and well, for British fans, there's bad news. For French fans, it's excellent news, because France have just gone 3-0 up.
and it was
They have won.
27-28, so it was 1 point or 2 points deciding.
So Arthur Farley making a dreadful strategic tactical error there. I mean, we're blaming him. I don't know. Maybe
I don't think
whoever
it was just
is.
him. I think they also did get the last place, so I guess they had to try all they could.
Well, either way, they were in control of that race for certainly the second half, and then the downwind changed it all. And we did warn you, didn't we? That big wind shadow, the tactics that you can use in that offshore racer, it kind of blows the race out of the water, really, and makes it wide open. So a fantastic performance from France. 3-0 up. It's the first to 5, remember, who will win the Nations Cup. We've got 9 races in total. And coming up next is the J70, and it's 4 against 4. So another big boat by e-sailing standards. How's it different from the offshore racer?
J70 is a lot smaller, a lot faster on the maneuvers. Spinnaker hoist is also a lot faster, so you can do some crazy stuff in this boat as well. We have seen some guys hoisting the spinnaker on the upwind just to go down and penalize the other team. We might see it here. Yeah, a lot of the French guys do it when we just sail around against each other for normal races. So we might be lucky and see some crazy tricks.
We always in the English always refer to French flair. Well, the e-sailers, their top e-sailers, certainly have a certain je ne sais quoi about them, a certain flair and a kind of touch of the old maverick in which they do things unexpectedly that you don't generally see with other teams. We're having a look out on the water, just waiting for everyone to be ready, and then the race officials will start the clock, and we are underway. We're under starters orders, a minute to go. So we've got Caven Fines, Speedy, and Arthur Farley representing Great Britain with Von Pigeon, and for France, Pepito, Tanguy, Tristan, and Gadex representing France. So some huge names in the world of e-sailing there, and a really difficult one to call.
Yeah, and we see the French, they have their own custom skin on the J70. I know that some of the other countries also do. So the countries who managed to send in a skin with before the Nations Cup had it made. So really cool.
We saw the Italians with their own federation's skin or sail design, and now we've got the French Sailing Federation design,
5
I believe,
seconds to
on
go.
the side of this one. Here we go then. It's just seconds away to the start of this first J70 race in the grand final of the Nations Cup. Britain have everything to do. They need to start winning races. They're 3-0 down. They've got to turn this around.
Yeah, really, really good start from the British. Hopefully they can keep in control on this first upwind. It's really important in the J70 just to be able to control where your opponents are going. And it looks like at the moment we have 2 British boats heading to the left-hand side. Doesn't look like we have much breeze on that side though, but looks like they might get a small shift to be able to cross back into the pack. Obviously the French trying to tack away from the British wind shadow.
Yeah, the darker breeze on that right-hand side of the course might be where they want to head. You can see from that shot how the wind is coming in. It's building on the left now. And that's going to help the likes, if it continues this way, that's going to help the likes of Arthur Farley.
Looks like we still might have 3 British boats in the top for the first downwind here. So yeah, solid start really helps your controlling element on the first upwind. We even have some of the French boats already 60 meters behind. So a lot of damage done on this first upwind.
Well, we've been in this situation before, and we saw how the French, how clinical they were in reeling in the British sailors. And suddenly we've got a lot of breeze here on the course. And Speedy, Arthur Farley, Cavan Fyans of Northern Ireland, approaching that top mark for the first time. And they're looking well placed. And as they come up to the mark, we'll be able to get a much better idea of how much distance they put between themselves and the French boats. Already Gadek coming in there in the background.
We might even have four British boats in the top. Looks like if Von Pigeon just can get ahead of Gadek.
Count them round. It's Arthur Farley, Cavan Fyans, Speedy, and who's it going to be for that fourth position? Just sneaking in on the left-hand side. It's Gadek, Von Pigeon in fifth, and then come the next three French boats.
Still
downwind they go, and we're gonna have to see some interesting tactics from the boats
from the French. Unfortunately, this is a very, very one-sided downwind. Looks like you really have to go to the right-hand side, looking downwind. And Von Pigeon doing a really good job of just slowing down Gadek. So this should be an easy win for the British if they don't manage to make some costly mistakes.
Well, let's hope you haven't put the commentator's curse on them. Let's see how this unfolds. But Tristan Perron, Tanguy, and Pepito at the back of the fleet. That's not a sight you normally get to see, as the leading boats are already at the bottom gate. They've rounded that on this right-hand side and are now making their way back up wind. So we're at the halfway mark with a British 1, 2, 3, and here come the French. They've started to reel in Von Pigeon, he's picked up penalties and he's going to probably slide to the back of the fleet now.
I think he's done a really good job of just slowing down the remaining French boats. I think that's probably all he had to do on that downwind, just to let his other three guys just get way ahead.
Well, 4 against 4, basically, if you get first and second, or first and third, you've won it. There are various other permutations, but at the moment, that's all the Brits are interested in. And Von Pigeon at the back of the fleet, I guess, is just keeping an eye on things and will come back into play if he sees the French boats beginning to close on the Brits.
Yeah, looks like it's just following the leader at the moment. Not much to do for the French, trying to attack on this upwind.
Let me take you back to the start and the early part of the first upwind. What was it in particular that the Brits did strategically that got them this 3-boat lead?
It looked like they really just tried to keep the French boats sticking together, keeping them all bunched up, trying to not let them just go on one side. They did let one French go all the way to the right, but he was 90 meters behind coming up to windward mark. So it's really important in the J70 just to have a good start and do your best just to keep the other team in your wind shadow.
Well, the distance between the French and the leading British boats has shortened on that upwind leg, but barring disaster, there should be enough of an advantage to the 3 leading British boats to give them a victory here. But let's see how it unfolds. You're never quite sure what's going to happen with the breeze and where that wind is going to go to, as Gadek and Pepito come into the top mark, and then Tristan Perron and Tanguy, and Britain's Von Pigeon brings up the rear.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say he brings up the rear. He's done a hell of a job slowing down the French boats and creating a huge gap in between the 3 leading British boats and Gadek. So I think
he absolutely has. But right now, he's kind of what he does is is no longer, well, let's see how it unfolds, but it's not really relevant anymore, because as long as those three leading boats stay where they are and cross the line in first, second and third, then the victory will go to Britain and they will finally get a point on the scoreboard. Tanguy just challenging Von Pidgeon. And I suppose he's doing that in the hope that his teammates may somehow catch the British boats. But they're running out of time and space, because Arthur Farley is leading the blue sails of Great Britain downwind towards that finish line. And it's going to be Farley, Fynes and Speedy who take first, second and third and take victory for Great Britain. At last, relief all round.
We get a point for the British.
That's right. So there we go. Confirmation. First, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth was France, and then Von Pidgeon of Great Britain in eighth. And as you said, a great performance from Von Pidgeon. The victory, that point, was as much his as it was the three winning boats.
Yeah, a very well executed first upwind and start. And it just shows that if you do a good start and really manage to stay in control of the French boats, you just really good, well set up for slowing down the remaining French boats.
So the overall score, it is France 3, Great Britain 1 after 4 of the 9 races. The first team to get 5 points on the board wins. And right now it is on to one of the most popular, one of the most well-known and sailed boats around the world, the Laser. It's 3 against 3.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's the most popular boat in VR, but certainly in the real world it is. It's a funny boat in VR. It's a bit tricky to sail. If there's too much wind and you do a bad tack, you will get stuck head to wind and start going backwards. And we do see that when it gets close and you hit the wrong button, and then suddenly you're going backwards.
Just talking to e-sailors, I think the J70 is one of the most popular, really, and basically anything that goes fast seems to be quite popular in e-sailing. But let's see how the Laser race unfolds. Let's see which players the teams have put up for this. And the French have got Tristan Perron and Gadex and Alex Kay. So 3 sailors we've seen plenty of already in this grand final. We've got Maradoni, Deja Vu, and Arthur Farley for Great Britain. So we're just waiting for the race officials to hit the button. So we have our minute countdown. And they're particularly different. I mean, it was 4x4 in the J70. We've got 3 against 3. Do we see similar sort of tactics where, you know, one player holds back the opposing fleet to try and get the others forward? How does it work?
Yeah, so it's a bit the same as the 4v4. In 3 versus 3, you just need 1 or 2 or 1 and 3 to win. So if you can get one guy away, then you have very good odds of winning that race. Yeah, but we have 30 seconds to go, and we have a good fight between the teams. Looks like we're going to have 2 boats starting on port tack. That's usually how they line up for it.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's follow them to the line. Little match races going on as the fleet split into pairs almost, and take each other on. Penalty for Tristan Perron of France. Maradoni also picking one up. This is really close, leaving it to the very last second. And look at all those penalties. So not the cleanest of starts. They seem to get very wrapped up in their own little battles. But at the moment, we've got most of them, I think, heading off. Well, a split in the fleet, actually.
Yeah, looks like we have two British boats heading to the right-hand side, and the French probably trying to penalize the last British boat, but not managing to do it. Really unfortunate. That could really have helped Alex to get back into this fight. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting first upwind. We do see in the laser that they are trying to pump their boat by bearing away a couple of degrees and then going back on best VMG.
Yeah, we'll see. We might get a better view of them doing that a little bit later on, and we can talk that through then. But at the moment, nominal leader Gadek, but basically it's a French and British boat side by side on the course. And I see it's darkening now, so we'll see a bit of an acceleration from them. 3.5 knots at the moment on that particular British boat.
So it's one of the slower boats, but it certainly doesn't feel that way when you're sailing it. Do see a kind of a bigger split in the fleet this time. Looks like we have some British boats on the right hand side, getting that right hand shift going out to the windward mark. So it could be another good first upwind from the British again. A bit unfortunate for the French doing so well in the first couple of races and then just having some small mistakes that are costing them some valuable meters.
Well, England have gone through to the next round of the World Cup, the football team. So we'll see if that inspires the British team here on the water. They're 3-1 down at the moment against France. So they've got plenty to do, but at least they have a bit of breathing space. It was beginning to look all France until the previous race.
But still very close for first and second position, only 4 meters separating them. And then we have, must be Maradoni fighting it out with a French boat on the left-hand side. Just trying to slow him down, it seems like.
So
Looks
here we
like
go.
we'll have
The leaders coming up to this top mark, and it's side by side between Deja Vu and Gadek. And what's Deja Vu doing? Going
I
the
think he
long
was
way
just
round.
being 100% sure that he wasn't going to get a penalty from Gedek. But Maradoni just sneaking in fourth place. And it is that in 3 versus 3, if you're not first, just don't be last. So I think, yeah, we're going to see a nice, I wouldn't call it a mark trap from Maradoni, but simply just holding up the 2 remaining French boats. And then it's going to be very difficult to come back in this race because he's just going to keep jibing on them, putting his wind shadow on them, and yeah, slowing them down.
So downwind they go for the first time in this laser race. It's race 5 of the Nations Cup final, and it's battle. It's boat on boat here between Tristan Perron and Maradoni. And now he's just watched Tristan Perron accelerate away to that bottom gate. As the leaders, you see them on the left making their way upwind already. Gadek and Deja Vu.
So for now, I think Deja Vu and Arthur, they're really going to try their best to overtake Gadek and secure that first place. So Maradoni's position doesn't really matter. Looks like they're going to have to wait until the downwind, but it's the top E sailors from both countries, so I don't think it's going to be over until the last boat crosses the finish line.
Well, apart from as well as first and second or first and third, you need 10 points or less to win this race, 3 against 3. But yeah, Deja Vu at that top mark, showing real maturity. I remember a few years ago, and he's hugely experienced already. He's only 22, but he's hugely experienced at e-sailing and has competed in top competitions. And I remember there was a little bit of, he was a little bit impetuous. He was a little bit impatient, but he's obviously chilled out a bit and showed some real maturity at that top mark. Let's see how he battles with Gadek, and can he get the upper hand and help the rest of his team move up the fleet? So obviously a lot of British and French fans watching this Nations Cup final, but where are you watching from? Let us know. Drop it in the chat on YouTube or wherever it is you're watching this live show. If you're in Britain or France, let us know which town or city you're watching from, and let's get a bit of chat. Let's get a little bit of support going for these two teams that are putting on a great show. France 3 at the moment, Great Britain 1. And if you've just joined us, we're having a great Nations Cup final, and it's a lot closer than the 3-1 score at the moment sounds. So here we go, top mark, final time, and it's France still in the lead with Gadek, Deja Vu trying to hunt him down, Arthur Farley in third.
It's going to be very important for Arthur to get away from Alex Kay here. It could be pretty dangerous if Alex has close, or if he's close enough to put the wind shadow on Arthur.
So at the moment, this is going to be a French victory overall. Maradoni needs to get ahead of Tristan Perron, and Arthur Farley has to make sure he's not overtaken by Alex Kay. So those are the battles to watch out for over the next, 30 seconds or so as we head downwind towards the finish line for the final time. Here's Deja Vu beginning to challenge, using the smaller laser wind shadow to try and catch Gadek as they sprint towards that finish line.
What we see here is actually Arthur was trying to stay away from Deja Vu and Gadek just to do his own race, just waiting for Deja Vu to slow down Gadek enough that Arthur could just quietly pass. But Gadek is not gonna let that happen so easily. But it's 2 versus 1, and it's gonna be very difficult for Gadek to stay out of trouble against these two.
Yeah. It's all about them getting across that finish line in first. Doesn't matter which one, but one of them has to get over first. Arthur Farley picking up a penalty. So his teammate now comes over to challenge the French boat. And this is so close. Penalty again on Arthur Farley. But look at that. The Briton has got ahead. Deja Vu has got ahead. He's crossed the finish line. And that is going to be a point for Great Britain. So a terrific finale to that race. And we just watched the back of the fleet cross the line. Very exciting, terrific stuff from Deja Vu and Arthur Farley. Excellent teamwork, Lucas.
Yeah, that was really well played, really good teamwork, just working together. They both knew what each other had to do, and just staying out of trouble and doing all they could to slow him down.
And now suddenly Great Britain have found a little bit of momentum. They struggled in the first 3 races, went down 3-0, but it's now 3-2 overall. So I think is confirmation of that score. So we have had 5 races. It is 3-2. It's the first team to score 5 that will seal the victory here in the Nations Cup. France looking for their second successive victory. Great Britain looking for their second overall Nations Cup title. It's exciting, isn't it, Lucas?
Yeah, this is really turning out to be way closer than the 2 other semifinals, which I guess also proves that we have the 2 best teams in this grand final.
Okay, so let's move quickly on to the next race. There's no time for the sailors to catch their breath. It is the Far East, and it is 4 against 4 in the Far East boat. And once again, it's back to the big boats. And tell us about this one.
Yeah, relatively new boat, 2 Virtual Regatta, a bit bigger than the J70, bit heavier in real life. In VR is actually around the same maneuverability. A bit goes a bit lower on the downwind. Wind shadow is a bit bigger, so I think we're gonna see some of the same tactics as we've seen in the J70.
Okay, in the J70, which was it was won by Great Britain. That was their first victory of this regatta, and we saw some really interesting strategy on the start line and up that first leg. So we'll keep an eye on that once we get out on the water. We'll see how they line up, and maybe you could spot what strategy they're going to use when the time comes. And we've been talking a lot about the different types of boats. What's your favorite, Lucas?
I think I really like the 49er, especially for fleet racing. But for team racing, it's probably the F50 or the J70.
Okay. So a reminder to let us know where you're watching in the chat on whatever channel you're watching this output on, and we'll try and give you a shout out as well. So let's get out on the water. I think we've got our 8 sailors standing by. There they go. And just trying to read who we've got there. It's Maradoni for Great Britain, Deja Vu back in action, and I'll give you the others in a little while. But yeah, early days yet. They haven't triggered the start. Just talk us through the sort of the strategy that we saw in the J70.
So in the J70, it was a very much a controlled race by the British. They did a really good job out of the start, just being ahead and being able to keep the French together and bunch them up and make sure they all went the same way, so they didn't lose control of them. And I think we're probably going to see both teams trying to do exactly that in this race. But the wind shadow is a bit bigger, so you do have to get a bigger lead in order to get away from the fleet.
Big hello to those of you watching us in New Zealand. Great to have you along. And just look at, yeah, it's kind of nice mid-morning sailing action for you, I think, if I've got my worked out the time differences right. So welcome to you, and let us know where you're watching. Right, let's focus on this race now. The pink sails of France coming up to the start line. Penalty for Maradoni of Great Britain and a penalty for Pepito as well. And let's see how the British boat split. We've got 2 going off to the right-hand side, joined by a third now.
So the British are very fond of this port start with a penalty, it looks like. I think they've done it in every race so far. And it's turned out to be really good at times. Looks like Maradoni is also in the lead of this race, and it looks like currently with this right-hand shift coming down the race course. So once again, British 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 4 now. Going to be switching around for some time now, but looks like the French are also a bit better placed than in the J70 race.
All right, so the fleet at the moment, led by Scotsman Maradoni, better known as Donny Gillis, to his mates, and Caven Fiennes, who, if I'm not mistaken, is from Northern Ireland. Then we've got Alex Kay, who has been excellent throughout this regatta for France. Gadec, Tanguy, Deja Vu, Speedy, and Pepito at the back for France. and Pepito is never more dangerous than when he's at the back of the fleet.
Yeah, he's one of the
Ooh, I thought we were going to have a penalty there, but Fiennes just pulling out of it.
he's also
And
avoiding a penalty himself. But yeah,
yeah,
Pepito, he is one of the best individual skill team racers we have in Virtual Regatta, together with Arthur Foley and Tristan Perron. So both teams have what it takes to win this grand final in terms of skill.
I think that's was that Fiennes working his way over to the right hand side. He seemed very determined to get over to that ley line on the right, ducking down behind the French boats.
So nice and compact fleet this time. Still all to play for on the first downwind. And it looks like the French are going to be in a bit of trouble coming in on Port Tech. They have no room around the mark, and we do see 3 French penalties in this mark rounding.
Wow, caught up in all that traffic, most of it their own, and picking up penalties.
Do you see some mark
And
traps trying to slow down a bunch of the fleet again? But that was actually the British initiating that,
yeah,
which
so mark trap from Great Britain, slowing those behind him down. I'm not sure how necessary that was, but here we go. Deja vu. Just seeing a penalty pass through his boat. You can see it's fading, so it means the computer's slowed him down. But Maradoni still out in front and fine. So no change to the leading 2 boats. But the French have moved up into 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th.
nice comeback from the French. It did look a bit difficult at the start, but they really managed to claw themselves back in this race.
First and second, or a first and third, will win the race for your country. But the French have really come back in this downwind
A
leg. An
nice
excellent
penalty on
performance from
Maradoni.
them.
And it looks like they also took the right-hand mark, which is normally a bit favored.
Right hand mark, normally favoured. Let's keep an eye on that and see if it turns out to true. Penalty for Tanguy. He's virtually stopped in the water there. Maradoni,
So now we have the
who's gone.
exact opposite from the J70 race. The French in the controlling position, but the British have been really good in the last couple of races to force their way back in the front of the fleet.
So the tables have turned, and it is very different from when we were at this exact stage earlier in the race on the first upwind leg. So it's now a French 1, 2, 3. And then come all the British boats with Tanguy of France in 8th place. But it's still very close. Remember, there's that wind shadow to play for. Quite a big wind shadow in this boat, 32 meters as they head downwind, and that is going to play a substantial difference between the 2 teams, as we saw in the first downwind leg.
So a nice
Just 40
French
meters between the leading British boat and the leading French boat.
So a nice French 1-2-3. Looks like Pepito is actually trying to slow down the boat behind him. Looks like it's Maradoni. And yeah, I think he's just trying to get his 2 other teammates to pass in front of him, or maybe give him a penalty as he is on port. But an unforced error from Pepito, sailing straight into that mark. But they are trying to get as close to these marks as possible to just gain the
Oh,
last few couple of meters. And another
and Alex Kay picking up a
stupid
penalty
mistake from
there
the
as well.
French.
Just getting himself stuck on the mark.
But he is in a good position to slow down the 2 British boats in front of him with this wind shadow. But it looks like Deja Vu is just gonna just stop him.
Look at him slowing right down, trying to That's Speedy picking up a penalty against Tangi. But out in front, and this is going to be the deciding factor, it's Pepito and Gadek in first and second place. Pepito, who on that first leg reached the top mark last. But he's back and he is heading towards that finish line. And it's going to be very difficult for Maradoni, even though he's blasting down there at over 15 knots. It's going to be very difficult for him to catch Gadek. And this is going to be crucial to the final result. Gadek goes on the attack,
Nice job
inflicts a
from
penalty on
Gadek.
Maradoni. He had the advantage in the right of way, and he takes second place. And that's going to be another French victory.
So Alex K actually just has to stay in fifth place, and he's pretty much
that's
secured.
why Maradoni's gone back. If you're wondering, Maradoni's gone back to try and stop the French boats finishing further up the order. But in the end, it looks like it was a first,
French
second,
1, 2, 3,
and third for France. So 6 points in total there, plus 5 from Tangi. So an 11-point total for France. And that should be enough to put them 4-2 up. We'll wait for confirmation and let's have a look at those stats.
Pepito with some good important stats for team racing: shortest distance sailed and best average speed. Really important when you're trying to do the comeback after that good British start.
Wow. So a really good performance from Pepito. I mean, really good, working his way all the way up to the front of the fleet, and confirmation that that victory was indeed France. And so it is now France 4, Great Britain 2, with just 3 races to go. So France now on match point, 1 more victory, and that will seal the deal for France's second successive title in the Nations Cup. And, well, you couldn't make it up, because the deciding race potentially could be the next one. And it's in the star class. And it's 1 against 1. 1 against 1 for the male sailors. So we had the female sailors on. It's man star. Britain need to win to stay at regatta. France won trophy.
Yeah, and it's going to be hopefully not too many nerves on
How does it
Tanguy.
feel?
He has to do is win this race, and they've won the grand final.
Various star.
So I think Farley is one of the best, also one of the best e-sailors we've had in the whole time of this game. Very young, and just also a really good sailor in real life. So I think Tanguy's gonna have his mouth full on this star race. I really hope that we're gonna have a nice battle, some close racing, and not some silly mistakes that's gonna end this race before we've even started. And we have the countdown started. Just over 1 minute to go. We see the 2 boats just fighting for position, doing circles, trying to inflict a penalty on each other. And I think we're gonna have a clean start with 2 boats side by side, but you never know what can happen in e-sailing. But it looks like we're gonna have some classic match racing, just doing circles, trying to get the overlap on your opponent, heading to the start line. Both boats doing a good job at keeping clear of each other. Looks like we're gonna have a British penalty. Nice work by Tanguy, just showing Farley who's the boss of this race. 10 seconds left of the start. Looks like Farley's just going to be able to squeeze in here at the committee boat. Both boats coming off the line at max speed. And it looks like we're just going to have a direct race to the left-hand ley line. And I see we have viewers from Switzerland as well. Always nice to have all the different countries that have also been part of this Nations Cup. So it's nice to see that they're still wanting to watch on, even though they've been knocked out. Arthur Farley has tacked off. Tanguy doing a loose cover, just trying to stay ahead. Looks like we have the wind shifting to the right, so they're just trying to get the max out of their boat speed and be the first to enter that right-hand shift. But it does look like Farley's gonna have a hard time penalizing Tanguy on this first cross they're gonna have. And it looks like Farley's actually managed to get deep enough into that right-hand shift, and Tanguy doing a very bad tack, just stopping head to wind. Farley managing to pick up speed and go below hook him and giving him a penalty. So really good job from Arthur Farley, doing no mistakes in his tacks. And it is with the star boat, all the top sailors, they do what we call a power tack, which is like in real life when you do a roll tack. You in VR you can bear away and then pick up speed going into the tack and just have a higher exit speed coming out. So it's really important to master that and not get stuck head to wind like we just saw Tanguy. So coming up to the first windward mark, Farley with a 22-meter lead. Not enough yet just to get clear the wind shadow. Hopefully we don't see Tanguy hitting any marks. That would be very costly for this maybe deciding race in the grand final. Farley with a quick jibe around the spreader mark. Tanguy immediately following him. So we're going to see this, the classic star downwind, both boats heading to the left-hand side. And we're just gonna wait and see when they do that final jibe into the gate. But it looks like Tanguy is gonna just try stay to the right of Farley, so he has the most time to cover him with his wind shadow down to this gate. So as soon as Farley jibes, we're probably going to see Tanguy trying to cover him and get that overlap coming into the mark. Doing a fake jibe, trying to trick Farley into jibing early. He's not gonna fall for it just yet, but it looks like they've gone really far to the left now, so Tanguy could actually just jibe back and head to the gate without any issue at the moment.
Oh, I don't believe it. I don't believe it.
Nice separation from the two boats, both just trying to not do any stupid mistakes and force or get a stupid penalty. Looks like we're gonna have a split. Tanguy not able to take the left-hand mark, but we do see that the mark he's taking has a small advantage in terms of distance sailed.
So
Wind
I
is
think
back.
I'm back with you now, Lucas. I don't know if you
Alex
can
is
hear
back.
me.
Yep, I hear you.
All right. Well, the gremlins got in the works. I don't know what's going on, but anyway, we are back, so that's good news. Where are we at on this? It looks like the big final push to the finish.
We lost you when the British were losing, and now you're back and the British are winning. So we have Farley, 14-meter lead, in a nice controlling position. Looks like he's going to be able to. He actually decides to attack before being able to cover Tanguy, probably thinking that the wind is gonna shift right, and he's gonna have a nice lead coming up to the windward mark at that right hand ley line.
So, Arthur Farley, right hand side. We've got Tanguy of France on the left. Tanguy, obviously fighting for victory, overall victory in the Nations Cup, looking for their second successive victory for France.
But it looks like Arthur Farley, he might have misread the wind. It's shifting left, and Tanguy is gonna just be able to cross him. So, advantage France before going down to the final downwind. That's a bit unfortunate for Farley. I think he did a really good job on the downwind, staying out of trouble with a French boat clawing his way back. Still all to play for. The star is known to have a very close finish, as we saw also in the women's 1-versus-1 star.
Here we go then. Downwind for the final time, Lucas. Britain have to win this, or it's going to be a French victory once again in the Nations Cup. And it's Arthur Farley, just 16 meters off Tanguy. The wind shadow on the star should allow him to be able to close that gap.
Yeah, it's a strong wind shadow. He has a way higher speed than Tanguy at the moment. Looks like Tanguy is trying to stay on the left-hand side of Farley, just trying to hang on to that starboard advantage as soon as they jibe into the finish line. Farley really trying to push Tanguy into a mistake, but he is not moving at the moment. It's all going to come down to this last jibe into the finish line.
Jibe to the finish line. Look how close
looks like Tanguy actually is ahead at the moment. Farley has to go below him and get that overlap. Looks like he has managed to get the overlap, and
yeah, Farley
Tanguy
pushing it, and really trying to get the overlap, trying to get past the French boat, but Tanguy's still holding on, and it's just a few meters to go to the finish line.
Looks like he's done a good job of just staying out of Farley's wind shadow, trying just to stay ahead at the moment. But they still have to go dead downwind to reach this finish line. Penalty for the French. I guess we're gonna carry on to the next race. Really well done by Farley to just get that last penalty in the last second and overtaking Tanguy.
Well done, Lucas. A good call there, and a good victory from Arthur Farley to keep Great Britain in this Nations Cup final.
The race goes on. And we do see how nail-biting these star races can be, and I think that's also the reason why we do have two star races in this year's Nations Cup. It just brings out some of the best racing.
Yeah, quite often the the star class, because it's a heavier, slower boat. It's not always kind of billed as being the dramatic boat that some of the the 49er or the Nacra is, but yet when you see it race like this and in this format, it's absolutely fantastic, and it really builds up the tension. So it is currently France 4, Great Britain 3. France still on match point. They've got two match points to go, because there are two races still in the F50 and the Nacra 17. So 2 against 2 in the F50 and 10 against 10 in the Nacra. And if you thought that the one-on-one in the Star was dramatic, if it really comes down to that last race, then 10 against 10 in the Nacra will be incredible. So coming up, the F50,
who we're going to see in this F50
boat in
The
e-sailing,
British have two
and
ESL
it is
GP
going to be
champions.
2 against 2.
Farley, the most recent
So
one,
we have got Arthur Farley and Von
and Deja
Pigeon
Vu, the other one.
of
But it looks like we're going to have Farley and
representing
Von
Great
Pigeon.
Britain, and then
And
we've
we
got
have,
Tristan Perron and Pepito of France. Welcome back, Lucas.
and I think on the paper, I think the French have the better team for this race. But Arthur Farley is the ESL GP champion, so he has also proven that he is one of the best in this boat in VR.
And I think he lists this boat as one of his favourites. So we will see how he deals with it. But it's a really fast boat. We're just waiting for them to get into their pre-start sequence. It's a very fast boat, isn't it? Which means that the slightest mistake is generally allows your opponents back into the race. So you've got to be careful to not just race your opponent well, but you've got to kind of race your own boat well, if you know what I mean, Lucas.
Yeah, it's a fast boat. They go 30, 50 knots upwind and downwind, and you might think that, oh, it's an F50. It's not good for team racing. But in VR, it is a very exciting boat for team racing because
Uh,
it's a good boat to help your teammates back into the race, and it's easy to force your opponent into doing just one tack too many, and one tack is very costly when the boat is going 30 knots.
If you've just tuned in, wherever you're watching around the world, it's good to have you along. And if you have just tuned in, well, you're tuning in to the absolute climax, and it is really building up to that of this Nations Cup final. We've got 2 races to go. France could seal the regatta in the next race if they win it. They are 4-3 up against Great Britain in this final, and it's the first to 5 that wins the overall title. So we're building up to a great final. Remember to put in the chat where you're watching, and we'll try and give you a shout out as well. We're just dealing with a few
Nice job
technical
from the
issues.
French, penning both British boats at reach mark. And it is also, the 50 might be good for team racing, but once you're ahead, it is fairly easy to stay ahead. So hopefully the French don't do too many tacks and lose those valuable meters on the upwind.
We'll have to see how it unfolds. It's a reaching start, isn't it? So it's a different format. I think off the top of my head, I think I'm right in saying it's the only one of the 9 races that has a different format rather than just 2 upwind, 2 downwind. It starts on a reaching start, doesn't it?
Yeah, and we see the French boats really controlling this race. The British looked like they tried to do a split and try to get each French boat on a different side of the race course so they could have a way back into this race. But it looks like currently the French have done a really good job at just controlling where the British are going, keeping them in the wind shadow, and trying to extend their lead. And looks like they've done that job really well currently. A split from both French boats on this windward mark. Looks like they're heading out to the pressure on the right hand side on the screen. And it doesn't look like the British have much to do at the moment, but you never know. You might hit the mark or you might hit the boundary. That's also one of the things with the F50. You're sailing on a race course enclosed by a boundary, so you can't go forever on one tack. You got to stay at the race course. The French still still nicely in the lead. No mistakes around this gate, and the British trying to do the split and see if they can force a mistake from the French. Both French boats tacking on the right-hand side now. If Farley is lucky, he could get that left shift he really needs and try get ahead of Tristan Perron, but it doesn't look very likely at the moment. They're also heading out to less breeze, which is going to make it even harder for the British team to get back in this race. Arthur entering the boundary zone. He has the right of way. Can he force a penalty onto Tristan Perron? Doesn't look like it. Oh, costly mistake from the British. Maybe their communication wasn't good enough in that given moment, and Von Pigeon accidentally tacks straight in front of Farley and gets himself a penalty. It looks like the French not have much to do now than just sail around these two marks without any trouble, and it could be the victory for the French in this grand final. Penalty for Arthur Farley. Annoying penalty to get on the final downwind to the heading to the reach mark. So it looks like we'll have a win for the French in the 2022 Nations Cup Grand Final. So well done by the French.
Hear me? I know you can't see me, but are you there, Lucas?
I hear you loud and clear, Alec. So a nice race by the French. Nice, good start. Very good reach mark. Penning the two British boats and just extending their lead or keeping their lead from that point. Some exciting races tonight. Both teams have done a really good job. The French started out really well, and then we saw the British claw their way back with some impressive team racing skills in the 5 versus 5 and in the star race, just really trying to keep their hopes alive in this grand final. So we're going into the last race of the night. 10 versus 10 Nacra. One of the faster boats in Virtual Regatta, one of the more crazy boats in terms of maneuvering in especially in these big fleets with 10 boats in each team. Hard to keep track of where your teammates are and hard to avoid a starboard boat when you're on port tack. It's quite easy when you're the starboard boat. You can just bear away up on your foils, and then you're pretty much forced a penalty onto the opponent. Looks like we have almost all boats in the race. Just waiting maybe for the final boats to enter. And then we'll be with you with the final race of the evening.
Well, Lucas, well done for carrying the end of that regatta. I'm back with you now. Hopefully, we've sorted out some of these technical issues. But congratulations to France for sealing it on that F50 race. Who impressed you most in it?
I think the French, they had a bit of a shaky start actually. Farley managing to get an early penalty in the start.
Lucas now, or can't hear him.
And just staying in front of the French boat and getting a pen.
So we've got 10 against 10, and this is, well, this is for fun, really. And the overall competition has been decided. The title has been won by France for their second year running. So things to look out for, Lucas.
Yeah, as I said before, it's going to be a hectic race. These boats are really fast. It's really easy just to bear away on the upwind, get up on your foils to avoid a boat or penalize a boat.
All right, 20 seconds to go to the start of this race. And all bets are off, really. And don't blink or you'll miss it, because they're in the fastest Olympic boat that there is, and one of the fastest there is in e-sailing, the Foiling Nacra 17. It is go for the final race in this Nations Cup 2022. France choosing mostly this the committee boat end of the line. The Brits going off to the left-hand side, and a small group of Nacras heading to the right.
Looks like we have some good breeze on the left-hand side. Many of the boats also going out there, but we do have two boats going to the right-hand side. I don't know what they're trying to achieve, but it could be that they're hoping for a right-hand shift and trying to get in the lead of this race. I think we see some boats are attacking from the left-hand side going to the right-hand side now. It's going to be all about trying to stay ahead and trying to force the other boats into some penalties. The two boats on the right-hand side have tacked, and they actually do get the right-hand shift, but is it going to be enough to get in the lead of this race?
On this right-hand side, the wind is strengthening, and you can see that in the little radar in the top left corner. And they're coming up to that top mark. And the French looking really good as they converge at the top mark for the first time. There's lots of pink sails spread out across the course coming in. And who's impressed you most, Lucas?
I think the French have done a really good job. At the moment, we see quite a lot of British boats at the bottom half of this fleet, and it looks like they're also doing a good job, the French, of just getting around this mark without getting a penalty, which is a bit more important in the Nacra, as the dogleg is, I think, 3 times the length as some of the other boats. So it's a lot of meters you lose when everybody else are foiling with their kite up. And we see the French having some good positions on this downwind.
And Fanch VR, or Cool, who we haven't seen in action, I don't think, in any of the other races of this regatta. Then it's Kevin Fiennes, always in the mix, isn't he? The lad from Northern Ireland in third place.
British have managed to claw their way back on this final part of the first downwind.
Round that bottom gate with the French looking good near the front of the fleet, but a wall of blue British boats also rounding right behind them. Cool Fanch of France and Tristan Perron in first and second, leading the French charge. but Fyans looking good as he heads out towards the ley line. And then manoeuvres into his approach to that mark.
Looks like Fanch is trying just to climb up on the British boat, trying to slow him down and...
So we've got 4 pink French boats now coming up to the mark, and it's up to Fyans now. Maradoni and the WHGBI, who's just picked up a penalty. It's up to those British boats now to try and disrupt the French charge, to give the other Brits a chance to move up the fleet. They are around that top mark for the final time. And they accelerate away to the finish, hugely fast downwind, the Nacras. And down they go on the final leg. You can see the finish line just ahead. They're led by a French boat. Tanguy in 5th place at the moment, trying to disrupt the Brits and protect the French teammates in front of him. Caven Fyans. Then we've got Von Pigeon, WHGBR, Rooster Jenner, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And that is a really strategically important block of British boats, as the French win the race, but will they win the point? We'll have to wait for the race officials to do the maths as the rest of the fleet battle their way downwind to finish the race. So a victory, it's a 1st and 2nd for France. 20 boats out on the water. That's a lot of calculations and a lot of maths to do. We'll wait for confirmation to see who has won that race. But of course, the overall regatta has been won by the French with a tremendous performance. And it's been scintillating and it's been engrossing because the racing has been so close. So there you see 9th, 10th and 11th were British, then 13th, 15th, 16th, 17, all British boats, and then 18 and 19, the final 2 French boats, bringing up the rear with Deja Vu in 20th. So some of the biggest names who have performed the best through the regatta, ironically, at the back of the fleet in that final race. So some stats there, nicely mixed up. Nothing you can read into that. It's difficult with a fleet of 20 boats to pick out any, for one sailor to be picked out on those statistics. So we're just waiting for confirmation of who won the final race before we can wrap up this Nations Cup live coverage. Apologies for the slight technical problems we've had along the way in the latter stages, but great to have you along. Great to see people watching in New Zealand, in Indonesia, obviously in France and Great Britain as well, and right across Europe and North America as well. So great to have you all along, and look at all the overtakes on those statistics, giving you a real insight into the strategy and the tactics that these e-sailors have put in. And once again, more stats, the same ones that we saw earlier on. Pitchnet, shortest distance sailed, largest number of jibes. So, making up for all his maneuvers. And of course, every maneuver costs you time. And the more time you lose in these fast boats, the further back you go. I can see so I believe that France won that final race from what I understand, but let me give you the final score overall just to confirm that France have won the Nations Cup. They have won it 6-3 the same score with which they won the semi-final. They've beaten Great Britain 6-3 to win their second successive Nations Cup and become the only nation to achieve that amazing feat. So congratulations to Great Britain for putting on one heck of a fight and some really fascinating strategies and tactics, but well done overall. And above all, to France, our Nations Cup champions in 2022. The petite final is tomorrow night between Italy and Spain. But for now, it's well done to France, and it's good night.